everyone. This is exciting. I'm very excited to be here. My name is Yolanda Gampp from How to Cake It, and I'm here to talk about and share with you and sign, most importantly, copies of newest book, Layer Up. This is a passion project of mine. I'm very proud of it. I'm so happy it's been released out into the world and finally share it with everyone. I'm so excited. I'm wearing the exact same thing that I'm wearing on the cover. And I'm happy that all of you can join me. I'm going to walk through the book with you, and you can ask me anything you'd like about it. So let's get started. This is Layer Up. It's called Layer Up because guide for cakes. I'm mostly known for making sculpted novelty cakes that usually involve fondant. A big love of my life, but I also love making other cakes. And in fact, on my YouTube channel, I used to make what we refer to as mega cakes. And we decided to call it that because they're just filled with mega flavor and they're over the top. And they're meant to be inspirational. And I just want to, encourage everybody to make cakes their own. I'm self-taught as a cake decorator, so I've been doing that for 24 years. And each cake inside this book is stuffed with a dessert or inspired by one of my favorite desserts or sweet treats. I bake cakes professionally, and I have for years, but when I bake in my own time, I actually love to bake anything but cakes. I love to make pies and cookies and ice cream, everything good. So this book is a passion project because this is the first book I wanted to write. I really believe that you should start small and work your way up. Novelty is sort of the end of the line after you've developed a lot of skills. And so I've had little notebooks and notes in my iPhone for years about what I wanted to include in this book. And I'm so, so proud of it. There are 7 chapters in this book. That's one of my lucky numbers. A total of 21 cakes. There's 3 cakes in each chapter, and each chapter is dedicated to a flavor profile. So I just want to start. We shot these beautiful openings. Well, actually, the book begins with my love letter to cake and little me with my hand in my first birthday cake. As I can't remember a time when I didn't cake. And I still love cakes. So the second part of the book is called How to Cake It, how appropriate. And this is where I teach you, how to bake a cake, how to line your pans, how to get the batter in evenly, take out the air bubbles, and to check if it's done. The next is how to level and layer. This is very important. I understand with cake, everybody wants to get to the end result, but all of the steps it takes you to get there are really, really important, because when you make a misstep in building a cake, often it's sort of like a domino effect, and it's very hard to take back. So every opportunity I have to make a cake, I take it as practice. I think I'm still learning, I'm still practicing. So this is how to properly level and layer a cake. And then how to simple syrup a cake. If you know who I am, you know I love simple syrup. And in my novelty cakes, I just use plain simple syrup. In this book, there are 9 different variations on simple syrup, because I believe not only does it keep your cake moist during the decorating process, but it's a great way to impart flavor into your cakes. And then I teach you how to fill and stack a cake, and I also cover how to pipe a fence and hold in other delicious ingredients so they don't ooze out the side of your cake. And then, of course, another thing I really believe in is crumb coating and chilling. And this just helps to ensure that however you decide to decorate your beautiful cake, it will keep the crumbs away from the outside. And then we move on to layering up. So the first chapter is Bountiful Breakfast, and the 3 cakes in this chapter are inspired by some of my favorite breakfast treats. The second chapter is Cherished Chocolate. I had to include chocolate in the book. Of course, I love chocolate. And I just want, have a look at these photos. They're just so beautiful. I wish this book was scratch and sniff. I keep saying that. It's not. I'll work on it. Maybe the next print, we can somehow get that done. The third chapter, this is one of my favorite opens, is called Dreamy Desserts. And this is very how to cake it. The 4th chapter is Fan Favorites. As I mentioned, I made mega cakes on my channel. And in this chapter, I've sort of revamped the 3 top mega cakes from my channel. And in this chapter, there's a chocolate chip cookie cake, a s'mores cake, and cookies and cream cake. I feel like these are childhood favorites for a lot of people. The fifth chapter, where are we now? I'm in love with noticeably nutty. So all of the cakes in here involve nuts. I love the texture of it, and I love the flavor of nut. And I should bring up the fact that, people will say things like, "Oh, I don't like nuts," or "Oh, I don't like chocolate," which is why I really wanted to divide the chapters so you could bake according to you. And at the end of each chapter, I also make suggestions on how you can switch it up. Because like I said, I always encourage people to be creative and to make it their own. And of course, if something in the flavor doesn't suit you, switch it up. The sixth chapter is playful pies. Each one of these cakes is inspired by a pie. I love making pies, as mentioned before, is one of my favorite things to bake. And the seventh chapter is wonderfully whimsical because I like whimsy, I like fun, and I like cakes that, the thing I love about cakes the most is they're all a celebration. With a cake, it's usually people gathering. I made cakes for clients for years for some of the special occasions in their lives, like bar mitzvahs and weddings and 50th anniversaries and children's birthdays. And my favorite part of my job, once it's done, was delivering it and seeing their reactions. So out of all the treats in the world, I always feel like cake is a celebration, and sometimes they need to look that way. Then at the back of the book, I really wanted to make sure that people understood the texture and how their fillings and frosting should turn out, because this is very important when you're stacking a cake. And I'm someone who comes from Toronto. There's 4 seasons plus construction, so 5, and weather really, really changes my baking, especially when I'm making buttercream. In the summer, it can be on the soft side, and I need to alter it. And then in the winter, I can never get my butter quite to room temperature, and it could be a little stiff. So over the years, I have learned how to alter it. So I wanted to make sure that you understood, when you make a vanilla buttercream, this is consistency. The chocolate buttercream picture is one of my favorite pictures in this book, so that you can understand. It needs to be spreadable. It needs to hold up when you put it in the cake. Otherwise, you're going to run into trouble. And then I just want to talk about the recipes in this book. So because I build structured cake, the cake crumb itself is really important in structure. So I have honed in and developed these recipes over 24 core recipes that I always bake. And I'm so proud to share them with you. And what I have done is introduce you to a core recipe, and then I show you how many ways you can switch up that recipe to change the flavor profiles. So you don't need a roster of 86 recipes in the back of your head. If you want to make a vanilla cake, this is a vanilla cake. I get so many compliments on my vanilla cake, and vanilla is one of the hardest cakes to make because it has nothing to fall back on. You know what I mean? It's chocolate has all that chocolate beneath it. They have all the richness of the fruit, but vanilla is the simplest cake. And so when it's lacking, it's very obvious. And I made sure to take pictures of it leveled so that you can see the crumb. I know you're probably not seeing it through the screen as well as it looks in the book, but I want you to see what the texture should look like, the crumb should look like, how caramelization should be when it's baked. And then you get this core recipe, and after that, there's several versions. And just by adding a few simple ingredients at certain stages of the recipe, you can make a cinnamon bun cake, a chocolate chip cake, a cookies and cream cake. Another thing I've done, which I really love, is added texture to cakes by including crumb crusts. So the same way you put a crumb crust on pie, you can crust a cake. And this works really well in a cake like a s'more cake, because when we think about eating a s'more, you think about the graham crackers, the chocolate, the marshmallow. And so I've crusted the chocolate cake with a graham cracker crust, and you still get that flavor, that texture built into the cake. And I just love it. As we made the book, as we produced the book, I made every single cake. And I even though I had so many notes and it was such a clear vision in my head, I made little changes as we did it. And we had such a hard time deciding what our favorite cake was, because every time we moved on to a new chapter and made a new cake, we kept saying, this one is our favorite and this one's our favorite. But I think that they're all so different and varied, and that's also what I'm very proud of. Um, you get the core simple syrup recipe, and then like look at this shot. I'm in love with this shot. I teach you how to just switch out one ingredient. You can make lime simple syrup, sorry, apple spice simple syrup, lemon simple syrup, coffee simple syrup, pineapple simple syrup, coconut simple syrup, and it really makes a difference. It's a great way to get natural flavors into your cake as opposed to just using a flavoring. And I do the same for the buttercream. You get my core vanilla buttercream recipe, and then you get all these beautiful variations. So I don't even know how to explain how proud I am of this book. And the reason I called it Layer Up is because, you know, your baking journey can be done in layers, right? Like I understand that I've done this for so long and I make cakes on YouTube, and often people comment, you make it look so easy. And that really is only because I have so much practice. I certainly didn't start here. So you can take this book at any pace you like. For example, the chocolate chip cookie cake on the cover includes chocolate chip cake layers, simple syrup. There's chocolate chip cookie layers. There's chocolate chip cookies for the outside. If you are not ready to create this, just bake chocolate cookies. You can bake a big chocolate chip cookie for your friends or your kids and write something on it. You can the chip layers. Ooh, at the end I decided to include a mix and match chart. And I wrote in here, if you're not, you know, for days when you don't have time to layer all the way, you can just make a regular cake. There's nothing wrong with that. And so I make pairing suggestions, like why not try the chocolate chip layers with the peanut butter frosting and just make a good old-fashioned layer cake. And so I really encourage people to take it at their own pace. And I think I've noticed over the years, especially, you know, through the community, that we talk themselves out of baking, not as much as they do in cooking. And sure, things can go wrong while you're baking, but what is the worst that's going to happen? I don't want people to be scared of baking. Baking brings so much joy to people. It's a wonderful creative outlet, and I just want everyone to join me. And the other thing I'm really proud of is every single cake in this book is decorated on the outside in a different way. And I wanted to show you as many techniques as I could. So there's 21 different decorating techniques. And I wanted to do it using tools that are easy to find. A spatula, a bench scraper, a silicone brush. You can find all these things at Walmart or on Amazon, or, you know, you probably already have them in your drawer. And really important to me for my book, which is, you know, advanced cake decorating with some serious cake decorating tools and investments in order to create those cakes. I'm not going to lament anymore over this not being the first book. I actually think writing the hard first was great for me because now I got to write this book. And the other thing I'm really proud of is this is a How to Cake It published book, or self-published book. We really wanted to do this our way. I wanted creative control. I wanted to share my point of view, and that's what I got to do in this book, and that's why I love it so much. And I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you'll all join me in layering up. I'm going to answer some questions. Let me just see. Okay. Oh, hi, Wilkins. Love you so much. You're so far in my baking. Thank you, Jamie. I love hearing that. I really love hearing that. I think it took me a long time. What I really love is, you know, sharing my knowledge and sharing my passion of baking and caking with everyone else. And I didn't really see that when I first started YouTube. I just thought, oh, I'm going to continue to do what I love. I'll get to make any cake I want because it's not for a client. And I just want to keep growing and expressing myself. What happened is we one community who came to learn. And I should say, that's a big reason. You have to start making your way up. Practice makes perfect. I feel like we live in a society where people don't like to hear that, right? We have so much instant gratification. And I realize, hearing from so many people, can you show me how to make a cake without fondant? Or can you really walk me through buttercream? That's why, you know, I wanted to put Layer Up out into the world so that we can all start small and you can start your own caking journey. So if you are interested, this is the book for you. And I'm signing book plates that will go inside this book. And you can pick it up at premiercollectibles.com/layer up. I'm so happy to be here. Oh, does Sir Squeeze appear in the book? Let me tell you. So Sir Squeeze, big star, you know, it's really gone to. We've also started producing Little Squeeze. Here she is. And so Sir Squeeze, it's interesting because I worked in bakeries. Simple syrup was an everyday thing to me. I would never make a cake without simple syruping it. But what I learned is a lot of home bakers knew nothing about this. And so we started to sell simple syrup squeeze bottles known as Sir Squeeze. And I always used the professional size because, you know, I was making huge cakes that like things. But we decided to produce a smaller model for home bakers. Little Squeeze is the perfect size for these cakes in this book. Isn't she adorable? I'm not going to tell you that Sir Squeeze is jealous of her. And Sir Squeeze is still great. If you make bigger projects, he's fantastic. But we always, you know, we strive to give our audience exactly what they need. And there's so many different levels of bakers who participate in our community. So yeah, Little Squeeze is featured. Sir Squeeze is featured in my first book. So he's been in the spotlight. Linda, how to get the book? Linda, I just said premiercollectibles.com/layer up. Hi from Spain, from Shari. I hope I'm saying that right. I love Spain. I really love Spain. I ate so much in Spain. There's a lot of people saying congratulations. Thank you so much. I really can't tell you how proud I am of this book. I'm just so proud of it, and I've wanted to write it for years, but we have so many projects on the go, I could never get there. So I'm so proud to say this is 100% a Cake It book. Yeah. I love your cake, really young. Thank you. And this is why I want everyone to have this book, because everyone's cakes, but you guys don't get to taste it when you watch. Oh no, I'm having a connection problem. I'm having a connection. Let us see. Are we okay? Isn't technology amazing? I mean, who would have thought? I'm gonna keep going. Yes, I'm back. And I'm back. And this book makes me feel like I'm back because I got to a bit of a standstill with how to cake it, and not in a bad way, but you have to understand I'm very fulfilled as a cake decorator. I've been my whole adult life, and I'm the kind of person who always challenges myself and wants to try something else. So creating cakes is, but creating cakes that are so finite that will live in a printed book forever is a challenge that I looked forward to and thoroughly enjoyed. And also the layout of the book and the visuals I wanted to give you and all the little tips and tricks I wanted to include. And I'm just here to encourage people. Like I said, like people talk themselves out of baking before they even start. And if I had done that, I wouldn't be here. So I really encourage people to stop doing that. Just start, just try it, and you'll develop your own point of view. Everybody's cakes don't have to look the same. There's tons of talented cake artists and bakers in this world, and we all do it differently, and that's fine. And I feel like any other form that is obvious, you know, we're not, if you're a singer, you're not all going to sing the same type of music or the same song, or if you're a dancer, same. And baking is no different. It's such a vast community of people, and that's why I always say make it your own. And I think because I'm self-taught, I did work in bakeries, but all I did, that's where I honed, you know, my layering skills and my leveling skills and how to just ice a cake and keep it together. But they didn't work with fondant, they didn't sculpt cakes or paint cakes or do anything of that nature. So in that zone, I'm completely self-taught, and I think that's what forced me to think outside of the box. So let me, I'm always comments on the side. I'm like, oh no, I can't read a lot of lovely people, relations, and you know how much they had a cake. Thank you so much. I never. What are the 7 chapters? Oh, I'll go over them. Let me go over them again. I should have put Post-its in the book. So There's Bountiful Breakfast. Let me show you, I'll tell you each cake that's in each chapter. So Bountiful Breakfast, there is a lemon blueberry pancake cake, a coffee and donuts cake, and a cinnamon bun cake. These are three of my favorite things to have for breakfast. And I also wanted to make sure to include, recipes that you could make on your own. So I have these quick little cinnamon buns that go on top of the cake, which you can bake alone. But in the coffee and donuts cake, if you're not up for making donuts, then go to your favorite donut shop, get your favorite donut and put it in the cake. There's nothing wrong with that. I think people don't understand that cake decorating takes a lot of time. And sometimes I'm a believer in, leaving, go and get donuts at your favorite local donut shop and support that shop if you don't comfortable making donuts. And do, by all means, make your own donuts and put them in the cake. And I love this cake because this has a coffee simple syrup. So you can see I've soaked the vanilla layers with coffee, and you can physically see how the cake absorbs the coffee. And it's just a really nice flavor. The second chapter is Cherished Chocolate. And in here I have a chocolate coconut cake, a chocolate peanut butter cake, and a chocolate mint cake. I think so many things go well with chocolate, but these are my three favorite things to pair with chocolate. And like I said, I made sure to decorate every single cake in a different way. And you can feel free to switch it up. Take a note from another cake in the book and the pattern of the buttercream or ganache, and just switch it up and make it your own. This is one of the only cakes that I decided to ice completely smooth, the chocolate mint, because although it looks simple, a completely smooth ice cake is the hardest cake to ice because you have no camouflage. So work your way up. If you want to make the chocolate mint cake, but you're scared of icing it perfectly, then ice it like the chocolate peanut butter cake, and that's just fine. You can do anything you want, and that's why I wanted to share as much as I could in this book. And like I said, I also include for each cake in each chapter at the end a variation on the way that you can switch it up. Chapter 3 is Dreamy Desserts. In here are some of the most, this is just so much fun. The caramel cone cake. This is a personal favorite, tropical upside down cake. And then this is probably the most indulgent. It's my brownie cake. Basically 3 desserts in one cake, but like I said, you can take this at your own pace. If you're not ready to make this cake, you can just make the cheesecake. This is my favorite cheesecake recipe. In fact, I didn't like cheesecake until I started to make it myself. You can just make brownies. You can, let me show you, for example, I'll give you the brownie recipe. So if you're making the cake, I tell you how to divide the batter between 2 cake pans, and then of course they're included in the cake. But if not, you can bake it in a rectangular pan and make good old-fashioned brownies. Nothing wrong with that. The next chapter is fan favorites, and the cakes in here are chocolate chip cookie cake, s'more cake, and cookies and cream cake. These are just, childhood favorite desserts that I think everyone can relate to and knows about. And like I said, if you don't have the time, just make yourself some chocolate chip cookies and it'll be a great day. And then, I'm really in love with the s'more cake, which I decorated so that it's naked. You can see this is a crusted chocolate cake. It's a graham crusted chocolate cake on the top and the bottom, just like a s'more. And the middle cake is a chocolate cake that I have simple syrup filled with ganache, coated in chocolate to represent the the square of chocolate that would be inside the s'more. And in here is a roasted marshmallow. The next chapter is Noticeably Nutty. This chapter really makes me happy. I think nuts add depth and texture and richness to baking. And I got to make a cake for the first time that I wanted to make on the channel for so long. It's one of my favorite desserts, baklava. So this is the baklava cake, and I just need to show you the cross section. So it is layers of vanilla cakes soaked in a honey simple syrup. They are then crumb coated in a honey buttercream, and between is this beautiful pistachio baklava. So if you're not ready to make the cake, you can just make the baklava. The honey cake itself, soaked in simple syrup, is just a nice, afternoon tea. Do we do that? Afternoon tea type of cake. Um, and it's just, I'm so happy that I got to make this cake. I actually made it twice for the book. The first time I thought, no, I want to alter this recipe, and so I went back and I did it. And then, of course, the chocolate hazelnut cake. I love the look of this cake. And I think it's a flavor profile that a lot of people are familiar with. And it's just so luscious and nutty and delicious. The next chapter is playful pies. As I mentioned before, I love making pies. It's one of my favorite things to do. So playful pies. And I have a apple pie cake. Apple pie is one of the most popular pies I make. I'm from Toronto, which is Ontario, and apples are one of the main things that we grow there. And so I love making apple pie, Thanksgiving, Christmas. And I wanted to decorate this cake like a pie. So I teach you how to use the extra cake humps and create a little hump of cake there that looks like a scoop of ice cream on top of the lattice pie dough. There's a key lime pie cake, which I think as of right now is still my favorite cake in this book. I'm a really big fan of tart and sweet. I love the balance of it. And again, it's the crusted, I crust each lime cake with a caramel biscuit crust. And then the cake is filled with a lime buttercream and a lime curd and a beautiful key lime pie on top. So you can just make the key lime pie if you want to. And it's one of my favorite cakes. And then there's a banoffee pie cake. Also very delicious. Banana cake is one of my favorites. I think banana or carrot are such good standalone cakes because you can just make them and they don't need much, and you can cut it up and eat it for breakfast. Here's the key lime cake. I want to show you a cross section. It's just beautiful. So you get that crust in between all of the layers. You get all that texture and the tart and sweet, and then the slice of pie on top. I really, really love this cake. I had to, for the final shots, I had to like take little bites of each slice, and that was very difficult. I just want you to know I did it for you. Um, and then whimsical cakes, because I believe How to Cake It is full of whimsy, and so am I. So these are sort of the fun cakes. Cakefetti. This cake is meant for a party, and you can switch this up. You can use any color palette you want and really switch it up. And one thing I did, another last minute decision, is every cake in here that is inspired by a dessert that's usually square is square. So I love clean edges. I love a square cake, but this is a semi-naked cake, and it's just so much fun. Who wouldn't be happy to receive this cake? And again, look at this cross section. I'm planning to blow up all these pictures and frame them and hang them in the How to Cake It studio. Movie night cake. So this is an unexpected cake that's stuffed with all of the things, well, I eat when I watch a movie. My husband and I have this thing where we take popcorn, and or when we were dating, we used to go to the movies, we'd throw a bag of peanut M&Ms into the buttered popcorn and we'd eat it like a mix. And so this cake kind of represents that. And it's just so much fun. There's also potato chips in this cake. So it's like sweet and salty and crunchy and all the good things. And the final cake in this chapter is the pink lemonade cake. I just love this cake. It's so much fun. Fresh fruit. There's a lemon shortbread tart that I have been making for years. This is one of my favorite recipes. It's really simple. It's a nice dessert, and you can make that tart on its own, or you can make it and top this cake with it. And it's just so much fun. And then, of course, I have the core recipes. So this is the section where all the core recipes are, the core recipes for each cake, the variations on each one. Oh, I also love this. There's a whole chart that helps you plan for each cake. So it lets you know, you need this cake, you need this many batches, you need these ingredients. And there's also a little bit of a roadmap, not a little bit, there's a huge roadmap at the beginning of each cake. So if you're making the velvet cheesecake brownie cake, we have these icons, and it tells you before you start. You'll need these cake layers, this syrup, this frosting, this filling, and this topping. And I really want to teach people how to cake as well. How to cake it. That's why we called it that, because I think sometimes people feel overwhelmed because they think they have to attack every stage of a cake in a row and at once. And I want you to know that that's not true. So you can, when I would sell cakes, or even on the channel, ooh, I am popular today. I would bake first. So I'd spend a day baking my cake layers, making my simple syrup, making my buttercream or whatever filling it was. I do all that. And a chilled cake, which I mentioned in this book, a chilled cake is much easier to work with. It just tightens the crumbs so you can level, you can layer really clean, especially with sculpted cakes, it's essential. And that's half the battle. You're just making your life easier. And so you can focus on prep, which is what those lists help you do. And when you're done, you can move on to the filling and stacking and decorating the cake. Cakes are truly made to last. A cake is not like a donut where you make a donut and you should eat it that day. Otherwise, they're considered day old. Cakes are meant to last. And so this is why I teach you to do it in this way. That's why simple syrup is so important for flavor, but also to help the cake stay moist. And let's face it, even when you have a birthday party and you order a cake, often it doesn't get finished and you have cake in your fridge for a long time and you're eating it days later. I've also included some info in the back of the book on how to store things, because sometimes you make a cake and you have a little buttercream left or a little caramel left, and that's great. I love having things like extra caramel or extra ganache in my freezer all the time, because I will, if I have guests over quickly, I will thaw the caramel and pour it over a scoop of ice cream for everyone. And that's why I love the cakes. There's a cake in here, there's a fall harvest cake that has sauteed ginger peaches in it. And there's a apple pie cake that has sauteed cinnamon spice apples in it. And those recipes alone are delicious. You can just saute your fruit and put that over ice cream and drizzle a little caramel on top. It's a delicious, easy dessert that you could make on a whim or quickly if people are just coming by. So like I said, I really, everyone looks at cakes and thinks, oh my gosh, I couldn't do that. You can do that. And you don't have to do that right away. You can take this book at your own pace. So let me have a look. Let me sign. And I also want to make sure I'm not ignoring anyone. Thank you for being here. And thank you for all your questions.
You want me to give you some?
Yes, please give me some other questions. I'm just signing some book plates.
Yes, so this is an interesting question.
Okay.
I'm going to give you a hybrid, okay?
Okay.
So James and Susie, they said, what were you doing before this, and did you ever think you would become a hit sensation?
No, before this, like I said, I've been a cake decorator. I've been making cakes since I was 21. So that's 24 years ago. I went to culinary school straight out of high school, which was an odd choice back then. There was no Food Network. I was one of a handful of women in culinary school. And I went to culinary school because the truth is I also love food. I love food. I grew up in a household where we ate a lot of food. I'm not a picky eater. I'm interested in trying everything. And so I went to culinary school. And I have to say, although I learned cooking, the pace of cooking is not for me, especially in a restaurant capacity. It just doesn't suit my nature. However, it's the first time I went to school and felt like I fit in and I belonged, and I realized that I am a doer. So all the years of elementary school and high school where, you sit at a desk and you read and you write about it, I kind of always felt like nothing was catching, if that makes sense. But when I went to culinary school and it was about doing, and it was auditory because, our chef would stand in front of us and talk and teach us how to do something and we'd be doing it. It was the first time I felt so alive, and I felt like, surrounded by people who were just like me and learned in the same way. So I truly cherish that experience. And back then we had to do a co-op placement. And so I should have been placed in a restaurant. I went to the dean, which is huge for me because I was super shy. I went to the dean and I said, could he make an exception and send me to a bakery, even though I was in a cooking course? And he agreed. And I didn't know it. I actually write about that in this book. I didn't know it that day, but that choice led me on this path, because as soon as I worked in a bakery and I learned all the stations, I got to the cake decorating station and I fell in love, and I've never looked back from that. And they hired me. So I'd go to school 5 days a week and I'd work at the bakery 2 days a week. And then as soon as I was done school, they hired me full time. And when I reached the point that I had learned everything in the bakery and I could ice 120 cakes in a day, I needed another challenge. So I moved on to another bakery that made all different styles of dessert. And I learned so much there. And then I started to make cakes on the side because fondant at the time was not popular. In fact, I had to drive like an hour. My mother would take me like an hour out of the city just to get fondant, or my cousins in England would ship cake decorating tools to me because they were very hard to find. Cake decorating now has so much exposure, which is amazing. And now those things are readily available. For example, at howtocake.com, or even when you go to a local craft store, there's fondant in my grocery stores at home. But back then it was rare. So I taught myself. When I was a kid, I always thought I would be an artist of some sort. And what I love is two of my loves came together in cake because it's art and it's baking. My only dream when I first started and when I had all my clients and built my clientele was to have a book. That was my number one dream. Because I used to, save up and buy cake decorating books and just flip through them and wish I could make cakes that look like that. The thought of me getting the chance to do that myself was something that constantly lived in the back of my mind and I really strived for. Where my journey changed is I never imagined myself to be on a Canadian TV show making cakes, to have a YouTube channel making cakes, and to gain such a following for something I had done forever that no one watched me do. I just, was in my mom's kitchen making these cakes all by myself and delivering them all over the city. So no, I did not see this happening, but I will say I always had a belief in myself that I chose right. I'm doing what I'm meant to do. And I just constantly strive to be better. And that's no different now. It just manifests in a different way. So, like I mentioned, writing the book is another way to challenge me in the cake world because I speak cake talk. This is what I say. Like when I wrote my first book, what was really hard was writing it out and having the editors at the publisher say, what does this mean? Explain it, because I'm so used to talking cake speech. But if I'm going to teach you, I need to tell you as if you've never made a cake before in your life. And I need to make it very clear to you. And that's a challenge for me. And it's one that I welcome. But no, I absolutely never pictured this. Last weekend, I flew to Miami for SoFlo, which is a huge cake expo. Even that, there's a whole exhibition of cake and cake artists and cake tools. And I did a book signing there, and I just love it there because that's where, all my peers are and all the community is, and everyone who's anxious to learn about cake is there. And it's such a wonderful experience for me, and it's so surreal. But I can't tell you how it fills my heart to have people say, you've taught me so much, or I find you so encouraging. And this is just another way for me to encourage people. I think even in a world of technology, I know I certainly love a cookbook or a baking book. I love a physical copy. I love to have it in my kitchen. I love to look through it and think about what I'm going to bake for the next holiday or when it's somebody's birthday. But no, I had no idea. I just knew I wanted to be better, and I feel the same now.
Another question that's kind of outside of the box.
Sure.
Outside of baking, what do you like to do?
Ooh, okay. Outside of baking, I love eating. Like I went to culinary school. It's not a lie, Helena, you know this. I love eating. It's probably the one thing my husband and I have in common. We have very different hobbies, but we love to try new restaurants. My husband is an amazing cook. We love wine. So everywhere we travel in the world, there's usually sort of a wine region. I love hanging out with my friends. I really value, especially as I get older and being a mom and having a business, I love hanging out with the people who know me best. This is going to sound really broad, but I love nothing more to lay my eyes on or experience things in life that I have never experienced. And that's one of the best things about How to Cake It, because it has opened up my life in such a way that I never saw. And I just become so creatively inspired when that happens to me. I love being at home with my husband and my son, taking walks and listening to podcasts, mainly of other entrepreneurs, and being inspired by the moves they made in their story and how they got there. What else do I love to do? I feel like I'm missing something.
You like working out?
That's a new thing for me. I started to work out with my best friend, who has been my friend since I was 10 years old. We started to just work out together in the mornings. And like I said, it's just quality time with someone, challenging myself. It's funny, but I have a cake decorating injury. It sounds weird, but I have been doing this for 24 years and rolling fondant for 24 years. And I have such a strain and knot in this side of my back that in early 2020, I was actually frozen like this. I couldn't even turn my head. And I thought I have to do something about this because obviously, I've worn out one side of my body significantly. It's like my sports injury, icing cakes and rolling fondant. So I decided to try and build a stronger foundation and muscles. And I stand all day. And it's really just given me time to focus and recharge and, be with my best friends. So yeah. And it's funny how the smallest thing in your life can make such a difference. And I'm glad it's a healthy choice. It balances all the eating I like to do, which is good.
So since COVID and since you took a little break from YouTube, I don't mean to say little. You took a
I
break
took a
from
large break,
you
yes.
took a break from YouTube, and we know that you've been able to explore so many different creative outlets and had a chance to experience new opportunities. So that kind of ties into a question that Olivia and Carmen have. Would you ever do a reality baking show, and what's next for you career-wise? So that's a heavy loaded question.
Yeah.
And your time starts now.
Okay. So one of the reasons we really wanted to self-publish the book is to have, total creative control, which especially on a platform like YouTube, that's the one thing it gives you. You have complete creative control. So then to be forced back in a box is very hard. So we wanted to self-publish. And one of the main reasons is not only do I want to write more books, but I want to help other baking artists write books. So if anyone is a cake artist out there, a baking artist, anything of the sweet sort, I want to help people write a book because I have an understanding of what it's like to write this type of book. And you're not necessarily going to get that from a publisher. And I just, like I said, I love teaching. And sometimes I really understand this because I'm totally like this with creatives. You have all these ideas like firing off in your mind, but you don't know how to organize them, if that makes sense. And in any other part of my life, I'm amazing at organizing. You should see my drawers. You should see my closet, my cleaning products. I am so good at it. But when it comes to my ideas and putting them in words and putting it out there clearly and in a concise way, that's harder for me. That's a challenge. And so I really want to help people do that and expand the baking book section. When I go to the bookstore and you go to cooking and baking, cooking is 90% of the shelf, right? And then baking is like 10% of the shelf. So I think we need to up that game. And I really want to help people do that. One of the things it gave me was the chance to be on a TV show, Crime Scene Kitchen. And I've been on TV shows as a judge several times, but I've always just been a guest judge. And this is the first show where I am the judge in every single episode. That's another challenging thing for me because I don't like to burst anyone's bubble. But if you're a judge, you have to give people, creative feedback and constructive criticism. It's really hard for me because I don't like being mean. I don't like being negative. So I try to be fair, and it sort of forces me to get out of this bubble of, you have to be nice all the time, right? Because I think I have a lot to share. And also just to get out of my sort of shy bubble. One thing I loved about YouTube is it's very casual. I take what I do very seriously, but I don't take myself seriously. So when I talk about cakes on the channel, I'm talking just like I'm talking now. Whereas on a TV show, there's a format and it's, you've got to, I have to share what I think and do it, in little bites so it's clear for the audience. And it's another way for me to sort of exercise my mind. And then, of course, when it comes to TV shows, people always ask me, what's your favorite cake show? And I can't watch cake shows because I'm a cake artist. Anytime I see things happen or go wrong, I get so upset. I have as much anxiety for other cake decorators as I hold for myself. And I really try to relax in my time off. So watching cake shows does not help me relax. I also have really strong views on cake shows, and I would love to pitch my own. I have a lot of ideas. I am highly opinionated in this space, and I think I have every right to be. I think it's taken me a while to realize that. So I have a lot of ideas for cake shows that I'd love to put out there and produce and create. So maybe one day.
What has been one of your biggest fails in baking, and what is one of the favorite cakes you have ever made?
Okay, so my favorite cake I've ever made is easy. It's my roasted turkey cake on the YouTube channel. It's not the most colorful cake on the channel. It's not the biggest cake on the channel, but it's my favorite. And I'll tell you why. It's because I had a hard time carving it. I took so long to carve it, about 3 hours. And the whole time I was thinking, what did you get yourself into? This is not going to look like a turkey. And I just kind of rolled with it. I thought about texturing the skin, the fondant skin, with a shelf liner that was in my drawer, holding my organizers in place on air, like on camera. I just thought about doing that. I thought about painting with dry cocoa, to highlight some of the more well done parts of the roasted turkey. I used all the cake scraps to make a sweet stuffing. I just, I was doubting myself in the process of the cake, and it came out. I didn't give up, and it came out so great. And even the way we staged it and took a picture, I have the picture in my phone. I, I often laugh because I say I'm the kind of mom that when I show you a picture, I'm showing you a picture of my cakes, and I can't tell you how much I love this cake because it looks so real. There it is. I don't know if you can see it, but I love it. And then another one is we tried to sort of ride on a trend when the Popeyes chicken sandwich was, people were lining up. And this wasn't happening in Canada. We didn't even have the sandwich, but I recreated that in cake form. And I just love it. So yeah, there's a lot of cakes, it's not what people think I'm going to say, but they're not the most colorful, but I really, really loved making them and hearing people's reaction to them. And what was the second part of the question?
The second part is the worst cake you've ever made. But before we go into that,
Yes.
I just, can you just explain, like, these cakes, they don't just happen in 20, 30 minutes like YouTube
Oh, no.
made
Yes.
it seem.
Yeah, and that's the hardest thing about YouTube because, you watch a simple 12-minute, 15-minute video and then people love that content, right? But that content takes forever to create. We have an inside joke at How to Cake It that we chose the most long-winded thing to do on YouTube, and it's absolutely true, which is why we couldn't really keep up with the algorithm. Like, we can't put out 3 videos of me making a sculpted cake a week. It's absolutely impossible. So you watch a 12-minute video and what you don't realize is it took me 2.5, 3 days. Some of the cakes on the channel took me 4 days. Filming the process makes it even longer than it already is because we want to get every angle so you understand what I'm doing as I'm explaining to you how to do it. And so if you think about it, if there's 20 hours of footage of me making a cake, now my editor Orhan needs to break down 20 hours of footage into 12 minutes and still make it concise so that you can understand the whole process. But when you watch the video, the gratification is you see me with pans of cake, and 12 minutes later, you see a roasted turkey. And so as a viewer, it seems simple. And ever since I've left YouTube, I've had a really hard time with a lot of the comments that are just sort of like, come back to YouTube. But, you have to understand that for 6 years of my life, and I started when my son was 8 months old. So I became a mom, 2 times in a really short span of time. My whole life was filming cakes. I didn't hang out with my friends. I didn't go to social events. My entire life was filming cakes. And as soon as we were done one, we would start the process of another one. And I don't regret it, but it certainly wore me out. And as I mentioned, I have a cake injury. And then there's other parts of my life that I just, I didn't pay as much attention to, and it started to feel tiring. And YouTube is a job. It's not unlike making a TV show. It just seems like it is, but really, what I do takes a very long time, and we couldn't change that no matter what we did.
But that's like the beauty of Layer Up.
Yes.
That's why you became so creative and you were able to just kind of let go and
Yes.
decorate as you felt when we were shooting the book.
Yes, and that I think I needed that sort of breakdown and break. And I think also, I stopped YouTube in the midst of a pandemic because it also felt really weird. In general, Toronto was hit very hard by the pandemic. We were in a severe lockdown. So life in general was different, and I think it forced not just me, but everyone to reevaluate how they felt in life. Because when everything else is taken away from you, you realize what you truly miss. And what I missed is, really feeling creative and passionate about everything I was making instead of just jumping back into the hamster wheel of YouTube because it had been my life for so long and I didn't know how to change. So yeah, it was scary when I decided to take a step back from YouTube. It was very scary. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know if I was ruining my life and making the wrong decision. But I think that time alone of reflection, made me realize and go back to all my little journals and thoughts on baking, um, to write a book. I actually have, it's funny, when we first approached publishers, we approached them with 3 book options, so there's still 2 more journals, guys, for 2 other books I want to write. Um, and they just weren't as receptive. They believed it was too niche. And I think my first book is the most niche book you can possibly make. So I strongly disagree. And we took it as a sign to do it on our own. And when I think about it, a lot of the best things that have happened in my life happened because we just did it our way. Even How to Cake It is the result of me being on a Canadian TV show. That show got canceled. Connie and Jocelyn, who are now my business partners, had created that show. And then they started to pitch me to networks. There's this girl, Yolanda, she makes these cakes. This is what she's like. And they constantly got told no, and that I had no personality. And we decided to do it on our own. And lo and behold, we had no idea that this was going to happen. So to have it so well received and to have all these people come and join us on this caking journey and give us their input. One thing I love about YouTube is it's such a two-way street, because people comment and then we can react instantly. I remember, we started How to Cake It, and I had this bucket list of cakes that I'd always wanted to make just for my own, pleasure. And so I started making them, like the watermelon cake and things like that. And then people started to say, oh, make giant sushi. And I thought, what a great idea. I love sushi. And so I made them. And that was one of our first videos to hit 1 million views in, like, I think it was a day. Like, we broke a record. And so the audience is so receptive because we're having an open conversation with them, which is great and unlike anything else. And we strive to still do that at How to Cake It. And that's why I say Layer Up is so important to me, because yes, people love watching me make novelty cakes. People love a transformation, any type of makeover. But I get a lot of questions from people who truly want to learn the basics. How do I made a cake and it fell apart. What's wrong with my recipe? Or how do you make buttercream? Or how do you keep a cake sturdy? Or how do you ice it so smooth? And I couldn't really address all those things on the channel, because the channel became more about levity and being aspiring. And, there's a whole bunch of people who watch How to Cake It and they're never going to make anything. It's one of the funniest comments in the feed is, who's here and never going to make this cake, right? Because they take a long time and you need a lot of professional tools to do that. So that's why Layer Up, I felt so passionate about it, because I really want to help the people who want to learn and I don't want to scare them off.
So, we only have 5 minutes
What?
left. I know. It's
okay.
Like
every time I do something like this, I'm like, how am I going to talk about this book for an hour? And then I'm like, blah, blah, blah. So let's do it.
So we have some quick fire questions.
Yep.
They're pretty funny. So are you ready?
Okay.
Okay. We're going to start off easy.
Go.
Where were you born?
I was born in Toronto, Canada. I love Toronto. Both of my parents are immigrants and met there, and I'm a first-generation Canadian. I've always felt very proud to be Canadian, and Toronto's a place where I feel like I just really fit in. And I just think it's magical because my parents come from opposite ends of the world, and what were the odds that they would meet each other?
Where do they come from?
My mom is from Grenada, which I made a cake dedicated to her on the channel, and she's in the video. And my dad is from Germany.
What a mix.
Yeah.
You're layered up.
I'm layered up. That's right.
Exactly. Who would you want to play you in a movie?
Wow. I don't know. Who could play me? Me? No. Who would play me?
Like, does Beyonce act?
Come on now, guys. I can't ask Beyonce to do that.
Manifestation.
Sure.
What chore do you hate doing the most?
Oh, anything that's paperwork. Any type of filling out paperwork, no.
Let's not even indulge.
Let's not talk about it.
Sure.
This is the type of paperwork I like.
Who makes you laugh the most?
One of my best friends, Casper, who was on the Canadian TV show. He's a great friend. He's very funny. He's very witty. He's very quick and sharp.
And he's on your Instagram page a couple times.
Yes, so. And he's been on How to Cake It with me as well. There's 2 different episodes that he's in the episode with me.
Who is the most interesting person you have met recently?
Recently, well, I guess in the recent past, I've met my two co-hosts of Crime Scene Kitchen, Joel McHale and Curtis Stone. Joel is absolutely hilarious, and I love to laugh, and he certainly keeps us laughing. And then someone like Curtis, who's built such an empire. Oh, in fact, look who gave me an endorsement for this book. But, he's like the cooking. I would love to be the cake version of him. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah.
What is the one thing you need to have in your fridge at all times?
Ooh, veggies. I really loved. It's so funny. Every time I meet people, they seem to think all I eat is cake. And I do eat a lot of cake. But on the flip side of that, I love nothing more than a salad. I'm also a really lazy cook. So if my husband is not home to cook, I don't cook. I make a salad. So I love having lots of leafy greens or steamed broccoli in my fridge or chickpeas or anything to make. I consider it a game. Like, how many things can I throw in a salad?
It's all about balance, right?
Yes, yes.
It really is. What is your guilty pleasure?
Okay. I don't think this is a guilty pleasure, but I have a collection of peppermills, which is totally normal and most people do. I'm obsessed with Scandinavian design and Japanese design. And so there are little personal effects in my book, just like there are in my first book. And yeah, I have a collection of peppermills. I enjoy them, and I included some of them in this s'mores photo in the background. So in my kitchen at home, I have a shelf with my peppermill collection. And I know that sounds weird, but that's what it is. I don't use them. My son is always like, why don't we put pepper in them? And I'm like, no, they're art. They're on display.
Do you have a middle name?
Yes, it's Rosa.
Oh, I didn't even know that.
You didn't know that? Yolanda Rosa Gampp. Yep.
Love it. Yeah, so we only have a minute, so you close this up. You
A
end with
minute?
something sweet.
Oh, guys, I'm so happy you joined me. I really hope you enjoy this book that I'm going to sign for you. You can pick it up at premiercollectibles.com/layer-up. And please join me on this journey. Let's get everyone layering up and leveling up and like glow up their cakes. Everyone stop being so afraid of baking. Baking is great, and you learn from mistakes. Believe me, I learned from a lot of mistakes to get here. Just don't let them stop you, and that's good advice in general for life that I've also been learning a lot about.
And I think it's worth, like, now that the book has been out and people are going to start making these cakes, like, can you ask them to start tagging you so we can keep track?
Yes, everyone, please. I love this. In my first book, I included cakes from some of our followers because I really want to encourage people. So please, if you make any of these cakes in any way or any of the desserts, even if you make your first batch of Italian meringue buttercream, I'm so proud of you, and I hope it changes your life. Tag us, take a picture, tag us. I want to see it. We're using the hashtag #LayerUpCakes on Instagram, correct? So that way, and you can tag me at Yolanda_Gampp, and it will be so easy for me to see you and see your work. And I just love the community we have built and how we all help each other out. So please join us here.
Yeah, and they can look forward to a couple of bake-alongs with you, right?
Yes.
And they can sign up at howtocakeit.com.
Yes, at howtocakeit.com. I'm doing some bake-alongs. We do sort of live classes. I have a lot of things planned, and I want to do so much more. But this book, I'm still on the wave of Layer Up. So come join us on the wave. It's a good wave. It's not rocky.
And I think you've got a lot of book plates to sign now, Yo.
Do I ever? This is not even half the stack. So let me just do a little wrist exercise. And again, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for being here. I hope you've enjoyed it. I hope you enjoyed the book. Bye, everyone.
Hey, this is John Acuff, New York Times best-selling author of 7 books and someone who's done a live signing. If you like the one you just watched, make sure you check out our YouTube channel. It's full of amazing authors having great conversations and signing books for viewers just like you. So make sure you subscribe, and thanks for watching today.